Welcome to the Western PA Work Injury Podcast.
Welcome to the Western PA Work Injury Podcast with attorney Michael S. Russell. With 33 years of experience representing injured workers across Western Pennsylvania, Mike focuses on helping clients navigate workers' compensation claims and protect their income and benefits after a workplace injury. I'm Leann Lyon, and today we are talking about independent medical exams in Pennsylvania workers' compensation cases and what injured workers should expect if they're asked to attend one. Hello, Mike. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Leann. Nice to be here today.
So, Mike, what is an independent medical exam in Pennsylvania's workers' compensation cases?
Independent medical exam, often referred to as an IME, is an exam that is scheduled by the workers' compensation carriers. We say independent. I question the independence of many of these doctors. I've been doing this for many, many years, and I know pretty much all of the IME physicians. In my experience, there's a question of whether they are indeed independent. But I also know that every individual comes into these things with a certain mindset. Employers come in with a mindset. Claimants, AKA injured workers, come in with a mindset. Certain physicians on my side of the fence have a particular mindset. So whether it's by intention or just by the kind of the thought process that people have, IMEs are far more likely to be unfavorable to an injured worker. They are regularly used in workers' compensation claims. I've said in past podcasts, I have several hundred files here in my cabinets, and in every single one of those, with limited exception, I have a doctor on my side saying one thing, I have a doctor on their side saying another thing, and those things get into litigation. Now, the purpose of an independent medical examination is not for any treatment. There is no attorney or physician-patient privilege. There is no physician-patient relationship. Those exams are a medical legal consultation. They are not for treatment. They are not to establish any treatment plan. Their purpose is an examination to come to some conclusions that would impact or could impact the injured worker's status in the workers' compensation system.
Does somebody have to attend an independent medical exam, or can they refuse?
Refusal, you do at your own risk. You cannot refuse to attend an independent medical examination in the Commonwealth for any reason whatsoever. I mean, I guess there's probably some, if you treated with that physician, you could probably say, I'm not going to go to that doctor. I've had that happen. But as a general rule, the employer and carrier are entitled to an independent medical examination. They are statutorily permitted to schedule those. Clients get very upset because sometimes I've had clients that had a prior work comp claim and they saw Dr. So-and-so for an exam, and then they're in their new comp claim with me and they get sent back to Dr. So-and-so. So they already had that experience where those two things did not work together and in fact collided. And so we'll end up with clients who don't want to go to an exam, or they research. I mean, everything's available online now. So they'll go online and say, hey, I looked up that doctor. There's 200 reviews of him doing exams and he's never favorable. Doesn't matter. In the Commonwealth, you have to attend an exam. Should you fail to attend an examination, the workers' compensation carrier is going to file a petition called a petition to suspend your benefits. And that means cut off your wage benefits. You will appear at a hearing, and a very nice workers' compensation judge will say, hey, you have to go to this exam. I'm going to issue an order. The other side will come in with their date. Judge, we've rescheduled the exam for June 28th. The judge will continue the hearing. And on June 28th, if you fail to appear, the other attorney sends a letter off to the judge and files it as a request and says, issue a decision and cut his benefits off. And the judge will immediately cut off your wage benefits. There could be, I mean, if you break down on the way or your mom, of course, things like that can intervene. But in general, if you fail to attend that exam after the judge has given you an opportunity, your benefits are going to end, and they will end until you throw in the towel and go to that exam.
So you kind of raised this earlier, but who is that doctor working for?
Well, he's independent. So he's not really working for anybody, but we know who pays him. Him or her, I should say. So we have, there are a couple of groups in Western Pennsylvania where my practice is located, and those groups do, there's probably 5 or 6 doctors in each group that do independent medical exams, and they will do 5 to 6 exams a week. They will testify several times a week. And in essence, a large part of their practice is doing these examinations. Um, I'm not one again to believe that they're all just saying what they're paid to say. I'm not going to ever say that. Many of these doctors I like, but I don't agree with. And it comes back to what I mentioned earlier, that people have different mindsets, and many times the difference of opinion between their doctor, while it's like exact opposites. I mean, we're as far on the two sides of the scale in terms of the opinion, but oftentimes it's an opinion about whether somebody can or cannot work. My doctor might say no, their doctor might say yes, and we end up fighting over which doctor is right. They're opinions, but the fact is they are scheduled by the insurance company. They are paid for by the insurance company, typically about $2,000 a pop. And then they testify several times a month. Those are the things that we end up fighting over, these opinions between their independent medical examination and my treating physician.
So, what is the doctor evaluating during these independent medical exams?
A number of things. Um, the easiest thing that they want to try to get is a full recovery, because if they get a full recovery, that affects, we talk a lot about wage loss benefits because that's one of the critical things. My client can't be without benefits, can't pay his bills if he's not getting paid. But the reality is these exams can impact not just your wage loss benefits, but they can ultimately impact your entitlement to continue receiving medical treatment. So one of the first things that the independent medical exam is going to do, the IME's doctor is going to look to whether there is a full recovery. You can have a full recovery even after you've had a back surgery. We might disagree on that, but their doctor can say they've had their surgery, they had their discectomy, they had their shoulder surgery, but at this point now, 12 months after that surgery or after that injury, this individual has gotten to the point that they have fully recovered from the work injury and they can go back to work without limitation restriction. They need no further treatment. So that's the first thing that an IME is trying to get to, is a full recovery. Absent a full recovery, the other thing then they're going to be looking to is work limitations. The carrier can limit receipt of workers' compensation wage loss benefits, not medical. So if a doctor says you can work in a light duty capacity, even if you go back to work and you're working, they still have to pay your medical benefits. So in this instant, that IME is designed to address whether that individual can return to work. And I can assure you, we have diametrically opposed opinions from IME physicians as to my client's capability of working as compared to their own treating physician who says something completely different. And that's where we're going to get job offers. We're going to get labor market surveys. We're going to see petitions to suspend file or modify file because they offered a petition that my client said I couldn't do because my doctor said so. Now, as a lawyer, again, as we're leading up to these exams, we are preparing the clients for the reality of what the Workers' Compensation Act allows. And more importantly, we are preparing for that fight. So as soon as I start seeing an indication of an IME, my client has an appointment with me.
Yeah.
They're instructed, this is what you need to do. When that exam is scheduled, they get a letter that says, this is what you need to do. And we have them doing things so that when we get to the point of litigation after that independent medical exam, I have the case over here to fight against what the doctor on their side has to say.
Can what somebody says during an independent medical exam be used against them later?
A lot of these examinations rely on history. That history is not only what the individual says to the IME physician, but what the individual might have said to physicians over the course of time prior to seeing that IME. So everything that you say, as the criminal thing says, everything you say can and will be used against you. So one of the things those IME doctors are doing is they are provided by the insurance carrier or sometimes the attorney on the case. They are provided with all of the medical records for my client's treatment from the injury forward, as well as any prior medical records, pre-injury medical records that might impact whether or not that client's ongoing condition is work related. Let's face it, as we grow older, people have degeneration of their spine, they have knee problems, they have shoulder issues. They may not know that they have that arthritis. So one of the most common fights that we have is over whether or not somebody has actually recovered from the injury, and now what they're dealing with is related to the pre-injury underlying status. So that history, as it's reflected in the statements to the physician, sometimes in a deposition transcript or a hearing transcript where my client has testified, and definitively what they have said to the providers over the course of time, both before and after that injury, can drastically impact the type of opinion that that physician can render. We see that all the time. A back injury, somebody's had a little bit of back pain here and there over the years. They've gone to a chiropractor, they've seen their primary care, maybe had an x-ray. That IME doctor is going to try, in my opinion, to point to these things prior to the injury as the cause of what my client has, rather than that injury. And so that history that they convey in the records and to the doctor can become absolutely critical, which again is why you need to have an attorney from the outset that's telling you how to present these things to your physicians and what to make sure to point out to your physician. And if you haven't had any pre-injury problems, critical to point out to your treating physicians as well as the IME. Never had a problem till this accident. Everything started since then. So there's those um, indications in the records can become very significant.
So, what should somebody do besides speaking with an attorney to prepare before attending an independent medical exam? I mean, is there like a mindset of emotional? I mean, seriously.
There's some things that we can do, and I tell all my clients, and as I've already said here today, I don't think bad things about most of these IME doctors. However, I know that they have certain mindsets and certain preconceived notions of what they believe, and that's where we're fighting over opinions. Everybody has different opinions. So I stress to my clients going into an
Mhm.
exam as to their attitude and their mindset to be kind, be gracious, and be nice. That's the way I practice law. That's always the way I practiced law. So I encourage them to just present that level of respect that the doctor should have. However, we talk a lot about what you need to say to the doctor. Like any circumstance, you want to limit your answers to what the question is. You want to make sure to point out to the doctor that you didn't have any symptoms before. Make sure you describe your job duties. Um, and one of the most critical things is in big, bold red letters on my letter to my clients when I get an IME notice is you have to see your own doctor. So it is critical that you get an appointment scheduled with your own treating physician sometime relatively soon after an IME. Because again, if that IME comes back and says my client can work or my client's recovered, they might file a petition the day they get that report. And if my client has not seen his own treating physician for 4, 5, 6 months, um, it can become, while not always, it can become very difficult to challenge that doctor's assessment that my client has recovered when he hasn't seen a doctor. So there's things that we tell our clients to do to prepare for that exam, both in their own medical treatment, in making sure they have a clear head and remember their injury, and they kind of know the time frame, which is one of the reasons I tell clients from the outset, try to keep a diary, try to note who you've talked to, and try to make sure you have something. It's sometimes really hard 2 or 3 years after an injury to remember what happened the day of the accident and when your knee pain came versus your hip pain or your back pain. So it's important to document those sort of things so that you can have them so that when a year, 2, 3, 4, I have clients right now that have been on calm since 1996. And so you have to have something to document those critical timelines, critical time frame, symptoms, so on and so forth.
So, Mike, if an independent medical exam report is or seems to be a little unfair, how can someone fight back?
Litigation, plain and simple. Preparation, and the things that we've talked about today. Be prepared for that exam. Prepare with your own treatment. Make sure that your physicians are prepared to fight. One of the things I've talked about, I believe in one of the episodes, I'm sure I don't remember when, but we talked about the fact that your own treating physician, the choice of that physician can become something that either helps or hinders your case, and in fact, on occasion can kill your case. Um, we need a physician on our side who is not only willing to treat my client and treat them well and do the things that they need to do. I always want my client to recover. But sometimes that's not the reality of life. And we need a physician who is going to provide them the type of treatment they need, is going to uh, give them the best care in the world, but also is going to be willing to fight in these arenas of the workers' compensation system. And there are a number of physicians who will treat clients in Pennsylvania. They will tell them when they walk in the door, hey, I'll treat you, but I don't get involved in litigation. We can't go to that kind of doctor, because every comp client at one point or another, more than likely, is going to end up in litigation to fight the opinion of an IME physician. That's the reality. They don't let you sit on comp. They don't let you keep collecting year after year after year. Even in those catastrophic cases. I have a client right now that's been on comp for about 6 years. He crushed his pelvis, catastrophic injury. He went back to work. He's still on comp. He's getting partial. Then they cut him off. We just filed to get him back on workers' comp because his benefits, or his employer, eliminated his job. So we need physicians who are prepared to fight, prepared to testify, prepared to write reports and give us the opinions so that we can fight that IME petition or position in the court of law and be prepared to do so.
Well, that is really good to know, Mike. Thanks for sharing that. And for our audience, that is it for today's episode of the Western PA Work Injury Podcast. If you've been asked to attend an independent medical exam and have questions about how it could affect your workers' compensation claim, you can learn more or get in touch with attorney Mike Russell at attorneymichaelrussell.com. Thanks for listening, and remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe to the show so you catch every episode. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Leann. Have a good day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.